In this video, you will learn how to add and subtract radical expressions. First, let's review the definition of like radicals and unlike radicals. Like radicals are radicals with the same radicand. So for example, 2 root 3 and 5 root 3 are like radicals because they both have a radical 3. Versus unlike radicals are radicals that do not have the same radicand. So 6 root 5 and 4 root 7 are not like radicals or unlike radicals because they have different radicands of 5 and 7. Now, to add and subtract radical expressions, you first want to check to see if the radicals are simplified, and then combine the radicals that are exactly the same, like combining like terms. So for example, like how we can combine 9x and 3x to become 12x, you apply the same idea with radicals, so that 9 root 11 and 3 root 11 become 12 root 11, just adding the coefficients. And for subtracting, you can combine 15y minus 4y to become 11y. And in the same idea, like combining like terms, I can subtract 15 root 3 minus 4 root 3 to become 11 root 3, just subtracting the coefficients as well. So for my first example, I want to check to see if the radicals are simplified, and both radical 2 and 3 root 2 are simplified. So now I want to combine like radicands. Noticing these both have radical 2 in the expression, so I can combine the coefficients. Now the first one does not have anything in front of radical 2, which means there's really a 1 there. So what I can do is I can combine these coefficients of 1 and 3. We know that 1 plus 3 becomes 4, and the radicals 2 stays exactly the same. For the second example, I check and both negative 3 root 5 and negative 4 root 5 are both simplified, so now I want to combine like terms. So since these both have a radical 5 attached them, I can combine the coefficients of negative 3 and negative 4. So negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7, and it stays as radical 5. For my next example, I first have to simplify the radicals. Now, because I have radical 12 can be simplified, I first want to go through that process. So if I simplify radical 12, the biggest perfect square that goes into 12 is 4. So I can rewrite radical 12 as 4 times 3. This becomes radical 4, radical 3. So it becomes 2 radical 3. And I can transfer down the rest of the original part of the expression. So it's 7 radical 3 minus 2 radical 3. Now what I can recognize is that these are like radicands because they both have a radical 3. So I can combine the coefficients of 7 and negative 2. So 7 minus 2 becomes 5, radical 3 as my final answer. For the next example, I want to go through the same process of first simplifying the radical. So 3 root 20 can simplify because the largest perfect square that divides into 20 is 4. So I can rewrite it as 3, radical 20 becomes 4 times 5, becomes 3, radical 4, radical 5. The radical 4 becomes 2, so I have 3 times 2, radical 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. So I have 6, radical 5. And then I can transfer down the other part of the expressions and simplify. So it becomes plus 2 radical 5. Now what I can recognize here is that these both have a radical 5 attached to them, meaning you can combine the coefficients of 6 and 2. So 6 plus 2 becomes 8. So your answer is 8 radical 5. Now these next two examples go through more complicated problems where we don't always get a nice, neat answer. For example, for the first problem, I have all my radicals already simplified. So I'm just combining them. What I can see is that both of these terms have a radical 5. So I can combine their coefficients of negative 2 and negative 2 to become negative 4 radical 5. And the second part is just going to stay as attached. So it's plus 3 radical 2. Since these two terms don't have anything in common, I can't simplify this anymore. So your final answer is negative 4 root 5 plus 3 root 2. For the next example, I want to simplify my radicals first. So I can take my first radical of 2 root 27. It can be 2. 27 can be written as 9 times 3. So it's 2 radical 9 radical 3. It becomes 2 times 3 root 3, which is 6 root 3 for the first part. The next part is minus 2 root 3, and that doesn't simplify, so I keep the minus 2 root 3. And then the radical 20, I can simplify because radical 20 can become 4 times 5, so it's radical 4 radical 5, which is 2 radical 5, which I can fill in here. So it's minus 2 radical 5. Now I want to combine like terms, or like radicands. So since these two both have a radical 3, I can combine their coefficients of 6 and minus 2 to become 4 radical 3, and then the minus 2 root 5 stays on its own, so it's just minus 2 radical 5. So your full answer for this problem is 4 root 3 minus 2 root 5. For our last two examples, the first one, I can't simplify any of the radicals, so I'm going to start by combining them. The first term is negative 2 root 2. There's nothing else with a radical 2, so I keep it the same. So it's negative 2 radical 2. Then I can identify that I have 3 terms with a radicand of 5. So I can combine the coefficients of these 3. So 3 minus 3 plus 2, which becomes plus 2 root 5. So that would be your final answer. For the example underneath it, I can simplify 2 radical 12 to become 2 times radical 4 times 3. So it's 2 radical 4 radical 3. So I get 2 times 2 radical 3, which is 4 radical 3. I can do the same thing for the next term of 2 root 12. So it becomes plus 2 is 4 times 3. It's 2 radical 4 radical 3. It becomes 2 times 2 radical 3. So you get 4 root 3. And then if I continue, I have minus 2 root 27. So it's negative 2 root 27. The 27 you can split into negative 2, so it's 9 times 3. So it's negative 2 radical 9 radical 3. So negative 2 times 3 root 3. So it's minus 6 root 3. And then I would do the same thing for the last minus 2 root 27, because I can split that to be 9 times 3, so it's negative 2 radical 9 radical 3, so negative 2 times 3 root 3, this becomes negative 6 radical 3. So now I have to combine the like radicals. What I can identify that in this case, these actually all have the same radicand. They all have a radicand of 3, meaning you can combine the coefficients for all these. So 4 plus 4 minus 6 times 6. So if I added 4 plus 4 minus 6 times 6, your answer is negative 4 radical 3. So we can see that sometimes our answers become very neat, nice answers, and sometimes they're very messy, and it just depends on the problem.